mouth and the meditations of all of our hearts be acceptable in your sight, O Lord, our rock and our Redeemer. What a week. I hope that at this point, nobody needs to be told to take COVID-19 seriously and to practice social distancing. I feel like I've turned into a complete nag over the course of the past 2 weeks. Has anyone else experienced that? But now, with the shutdown orders across the United States, I don't have to yell at my relations not to go out because the police will do that for me. Yikes, right? But swift government intervention is undoubtedly better than getting the coronavirus. And I do feel like it needs to be said. The situation is really, really real. Epidemiologists across the country are saying things that sound, frankly, wild, fantastic, except that they all more or less agree with each other. One estimate that's going around is that 2.2 million people in the United States, maybe as many as 45 million worldwide, could die. 2.2 million people in the United States. That's not the best case scenario, but it's also not even close to the worst case scenario that, again, epidemiologists studying this have proposed. It's still 3/4 as many people worldwide as died in World War II. That's the path that it seems like we might be on. The simple truth, the really hard truth, is that some of our friends, and maybe some of us, will die. It is incredibly hard to say that, but it has to be said. And I don't say that to induce panic, or for the purpose of freaking us out, or for the purpose of making us feel scared. But I say it for two reasons. One is that when I look around at my friends and family, I see some people acting as though they personally are immortal. Now, I am not talking about the kids who are on spring break and won't leave the beach for love or money. We already know about them. Fine. They stink. Great. I'm talking about people who are in high-risk groups, people who are over 65, who are immunocompromised, who have asthma, who so much want to help others, that they are going to the store, that they're running errands, that they're doing tasks. That's a very noble impulse, but it's time to pull back. If you're over 65, it is time to let other people shoulder the burden. As they say on the airplane, put your own oxygen mask on before helping others, okay? But the second reason I want to talk about this is that at the moment I see a lot of people saying things like the coronavirus is God's judgment. And they have different ideas about what that judgment is for, of course. Everybody has their own pet peeve, their own favorite sin, and everybody thinks that that happens to be what God is judging humanity for. But this basic impulse is not restricted to religious people either. You know how the Venice canals are running clear right now because people aren't going outside to foul them up. It's really beautiful. It's an image of the way things should be. But some people see those images and think, Mother Earth is defending herself with the coronavirus. People are the real plague. This may seem like an absolutely cynical, dark take, but I have been shocked at how many people have repeated it. Even people I know to be kind and compassionate and thoughtful most of the time. And the thing is, I think they don't really mean it. I think that when people think about this in the abstract, it seems like, sure, it would be good for there to be fewer people in the world, less strain on resources, less pollution. But then you sit down and you think about what that would actually mean, right? You put faces on it. You think about each person's precious and unique life, their families. Think about their experiences. Think about their souls. And you realize that that view can't stand. You can't repeat it even casually, even just, off the cuff. And we know that in crises like this, the poorest among us suffer the most. Broadly speaking, wealthy people can self-isolate. Poor people have to continue going to work, have to worry if they can afford a trip to the doctor. Poor countries have fewer ventilators, right? If this is a punishment or some sort of cleansing, it's not a fair one. It's not a just one. But this isn't a punishment or a cleansing. It is not. In today's gospel, Jesus speaks with his disciples about misfortune, about a man who was born blind. And they think that surely he was born blind because of his parents' sins. Not even his sins, his parents' sins. That was the standard idea about disability at the time, after all. But Jesus isn't having any of that. He says, neither this man nor his parents sinned. That's not how this thing works. Otherwise, good people would be happy and rich and beautiful, and bad people would suffer. And we know that's not so. The plague doesn't work like that either. This plague, this coronavirus plague. It's not God's wrath for anything we've done. Entirely apart from anything else, God doesn't need to send a plague to punish us for our sins against the environment. He doesn't need to. The laws of cause and effect have done that for him. It's called climate change. What Jesus says about the blind man is, he was born blind so that God's works might be revealed in him. And maybe this crisis is like that too. Maybe it is an opportunity for God to work through us. I'm not saying that I expect an angel bearing surgical masks to come down out of heaven and hand them out to everyone, or that I expect the virus to suddenly mutate and become less dangerous. I mean, it could happen, and genuinely it could, but I'm not counting on it. Yet I see miracles happening everywhere these days. Even before the shelter-in-place ruling came down, subway ridership had dropped to less than half, commuter rail by 90%, because of people doing the right thing and staying home to prevent the spread of this virus. That is a miracle. It's not less a miracle because it's something we did working together. Indeed, it might be more a miracle. When was the last time you ever saw 8 million people getting their noses in the same direction, working side by side to get something done? A miracle. The fish returning to the Venice canals, that's a miracle. And it's also something we did. It's not that people had to die in order to make that change. It's that they changed their way of life. The air pollution in Los Angeles and in New York is down to unheard of low levels. That is absolutely miraculous, and it's something that we did with our actions. These miracles do not mean that life is going back to the way it was. It won't for a long time. We know that. If anything, times are going to be harder than they are now. But we can see through these little miracles, these actually pretty big miracles, that there is a way forward, and the way forward is together. We've already done some things just within St. Mark's. We've instituted virtual church, and we're all working together to make it happen. Everybody here, everybody in the chat helping each other. It's wonderful. Amelia, Luke, Ernest, and Mary Margaret are initiating Pay It Forward, which is a new ministry to help us check in with each other in these scary times, to make sure we're all okay and that no one feels too alone. Some of our gifted musicians got together last week in a group of less than 10 people practicing social distancing before the stay inside order came through to make videos that will truly help lift your spirits. Those are being posted on the website and on Facebook and our YouTube channel. But this is going to take more than St. Mark's. The whole city, the whole nation, the whole world is going to have to come together over this crisis. And we will. Those of us who are not in high-risk groups can help those who are by running errands and by checking in. We can all reach out to our neighbors if we don't know them well already and make sure that they know we are there in an emergency. Just that little bit of outreach, whoever they are. Those of us who can sew can take part in the drives to make masks for healthcare workers. And it won't only be the coronavirus that makes us need that interdependency. Many of us are already out of work. There's a mortgage freeze, but there's no rent freeze yet. We need to rely on each other to share our wealth if we can afford it, to make sure that no one goes hungry, that no one gets evicted. We may be entering lean times right now, but as a couple of our contemporary poets, Jay-Z and Beyonce, say, here we measure success by how many people successful next to you. Here we say you broke if everybody is broke except for you. The thing is, I trust us to get through this together. And I know that our efforts will make the difference. Those scary numbers of possible deaths, they assume that we don't work together, that we don't follow through, and that we don't follow epidemiologists' advice. If we work together, the number of deaths could fall as much as 90%. 2 million people don't have to die. Not if we all work together. And working together means wash your hands and stay indoors, guys. Like, we can handle this. But beyond all our own efforts, when we feel like we've done everything we can, we aren't at the end of our strength because we also have God. We have God, and with God, we will do what needs to be done. I can't help but think that there's a reason that this week's psalm is Psalm 23, the one everyone knows, because when we're in times of trouble, we need to go back to basics. The basics of caring for our neighbors, and also the basic promise that God makes to us. The promise is not that everything will go smoothly or easily or happily in our lives. It's a promise about our life and also about the life to come. Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You spread a table before me in the presence of those who trouble me. You have anointed my head with oil, and my cup is running over. Surely your goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever.